Well, let's discuss this possible investigation into whether Mr. Johnson lied to the UK Parliament about breaking COVID-19 lockdown rules or not. We have joining me in the studio, international affairs analyst, Dr. Bola Adediran Joined. It's good to have you join us in the studio at the time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so very interesting topic.
Yes.
So I didn't know we could have Partygate scandal, and then of course with the UK Prime Minister breaching COVID-19 restrictions, and he has apologized twice this week, but that seems not to be going down well with the Parliament. Yet you would say he has 9 lives since he doesn't want to, of course, resign. Does the opposition have a case here if you look at the whole scenario?
Well, they do actually. They do, because if Mr. Boris Johnson has been found to have lied to the Parliament, it opens a new vista of problems for him. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, the Met Police actually issued fixed penalty notices to Mr. Boris Johnson and other 49 individuals within the government or surrounding the government over what you call the Partygate scandal. But I think that Mr. Boris Johnson has always been a very lucky chap in terms of being able to overcome scandals. Remember,
very sure.
There were cases of mismanagement, of supposed corruption while he was a Greater London mayor, where he had an affair with an individual US businesswoman, Jennifer Curie, and it was it was reported at that time that he had probably authorized more than 100,000 grants to her, and even put out on his delegation across the world. So he survived that one to become Prime Minister, but I think that this might be one that's gone too far for him, really.
Of course, for the opposition that might look like it, but for his party, which was to see him as an electoral asset, if they're going into the elections, if you look at what actually awaits him, what punishment do you think he will face if the police is able to prove any kind of,
Well, the police have been able
case
to prove it, and that's why they issued the fixed penalty notices and fines to him. I think what we have with the parliamentary investigation now is whether he misled the Parliament. Now, what is tricky about this situation is that ordinarily there is a parliamentary rule that says that when ministers mislead the Parliament, it's a resigning offence, and you did mention that in your report. So the minister is supposed to resign, but they hand their resignation to the Prime Minister. Now it's the Prime Minister that has flouted the rule. The rule. So technically, he will be handing his resignation to himself, and this can also become very a bit tricky.
So, what does Boris Johnson have at hand? Does he just have the office as the Prime Minister to defend himself, or does he have something else to defend himself, going through all this scandal back and forth at the Parliament, having to always defend himself or tell the members of Parliament that I'm not going to resign? But does he have something to hold on or to defend himself, or to hold? Does he have the support of the Conservative Party or something? Do you think he can weather the storm? Well,
I think that what has always helped Boris Johnson is his public appeal. Voters historically have loved him just because he's a weird man. He's a rough and tumble Prime Minister, makes his hair in a funny way. Oftentimes his tie is untied, and and he's always had that appeal to voters. And I think that over time, Tories have been very reluctant to really put him on the spot because of their own electoral chances are tied to his. If Boris Johnson leaves, there's a great chance that the Tories will lose in a spectacular way. In fact, Boris Johnson oversaw the largest conservative victory since 1987 when Margaret Thatcher was still the Prime Minister. So they know he's an electoral asset, and that's why they've been able to support him so far.
Kind of way.
But when the public begin to change the tone and the feelings about Boris Johnson, and I think there is increasing evidence that many members of the public are very uncomfortable with what Mr. Johnson has done, especially given that the first lockdown, everyone was literally told to sit at home, and people lost their family, lost members of their family, and they couldn't see. And so to see that the Prime Minister has really violated the rules when he had told members of the public to sit down at home. And we don't also forget, is one of his chief aides, his chief political strategist, Dominic Cummings, resigned over something similar when he broke COVID rules, and has become Boris's albatross since then. So what we're seeing is Mr. Johnson having difficulties based on some of the things that he himself really enacted.
But do we see him coming out of this?
Well, I think that what would happen is if conservative members, the Tory members, increasingly they were beginning to do that, call out Boris Johnson to resign, and then the Ukraine war happened, and so it felt that he had really escaped that at that time. But increasingly, especially with these new investigations, I fear that the spotlight will be on the Prime Minister once again, and it might be a bit difficult for him to escape this, given all the public opprobrium that would probably follow this particular investigation, and to show how this particular administration has violated its own rules.
International Affairs Analyst Dr. Bola Adediran, thank you so much
for
sharing your thoughts on this. So hopefully Boris Johnson remains in the job, and of course for the betterment of Britain. Thank you so much for joining us.